Beneath the gentle waves at your favorite beach, an entire city could be sleeping. The ocean is slowly giving up its secrets, revealing 27 lost coastal cities that vanished from the map. These places were not found by treasure hunters, but by the relentless movement of the shifting shores themselves. By the end of this journey, you will know the incredible stories of human triumph and tragedy hidden beneath the sand and sea. We will uncover how a single earthquake can erase a metropolis and why a legendary kingdom might be more than just a myth. What do you believe the ocean is still keeping from us? The ground beneath our feet feels permanent, but the coastline is anything but still. It is a constant, slow-motion war between land and sea, fought with the weapons of erosion, sedimentation, and the immense power of the earth itself. The sea gnaws at cliffs, carrying away grains of sand one by one. Rivers deposit new land, building vast deltas that slowly push the shoreline forward. And all the while, the global sea level itself rises and falls over centuries, a patient force that can drown a world with barely a ripple. A thriving port city might spend generations watching its harbor grow shallower, its streets flooding with increasing frequency, until one day it is simply no longer a place for people. This is a slow surrender to the waves. In stark contrast, the Earth can shift in an instant. A single violent tectonic event can cause the ground to simply drop, plunging entire districts into the sea in a matter of minutes. The same forces that erase these places, however, also become their protectors. Layers of sand and silt settle over the ruins, sealing them away from the corrosive touch of water and air. This creates a perfect time capsule, a snapshot of a moment frozen in mud, waiting for the very same shifting shores to change their mind and pull back the curtain. To truly grasp the miracle of their rediscovery, we must first meet a city that experienced this fate firsthand, a place of legend that was swallowed in a single day and night. That stone fragment, found by pure chance, was the key to a kingdom of myth. For over 1,000 years, the great port of Heracleion was nothing more than a legend, a name whispered in ancient texts about a gateway to Egypt so wealthy it seemed impossible to be real. Then, an underwater archaeologist named Frank Gaudio and his team, working in the murky waters of Abaukia Bay, spotted a carved edge protruding from the seabed. What they pulled from the silt was not just a rock, it was the first thread of a story everyone had forgotten. They kept pulling, and the Mediterranean gave up its secrets. Colossal statues of pharaohs and queens, frozen in time, emerged from the darkness. They found the remains of a grand temple, its stones scattered like a giant's forgotten toys, and a trove of gold coins and delicate jewelry that spoke of immense wealth. But how does a city, a major commercial hub, simply disappear? Heracleion was built on the unstable clay of the Nile Delta. Experts believe a perfect storm of disasters struck. The ground, saturated with water, likely underwent a process called liquefaction, where solid earth suddenly behaves like a liquid. This, combined with a rising water table and possibly a powerful earthquake, caused the entire city to simply sink, swallowed by the very clay it stood upon. The mud that consumed it, however, became its protector, sealing it in an almost oxygen-free environment that preserved wood, fabric, and metal for centuries. Most importantly, the discovery of inscribed stone slabs known as stelae provided a direct line to the past. These were not just artistic carvings, they were official decrees, laying out the intricate trade and taxation laws of ancient Egypt. They confirmed Heracleion's role as a critical customs and administrative center, a place where the wealth of an empire flowed in and out. From a sunken legend, a vibrant, functioning city was resurrected, its story perfectly preserved on the seabed. Yet the Mediterranean holds more than one sunken metropolis, and our journey along the shifting shores is just beginning. While Heracleion revealed a city lost to a sudden collapse, another discovery tells a far slower, more patient story. Off the coast of southern Laconia in Greece, the ruins of Pavlopetri lie in just a few meters of clear water, so undisturbed you can swim directly over its ancient streets. This is not just another sunken city, it is the oldest known submerged city in the world, a place that thrived over 5,000 years ago during the Bronze Age. Its name, a modern one given by local fishermen, belies its incredible age. Here, the layout of an entire town is perfectly visible on the seabed. You can trace the main roads, see the outlines of individual buildings, and even identify courtyards and tombs that have rested there for millennia. This is not a jumble of ruins, it is a complete urban plan, a ghost map of a prehistoric community. The cause of its disappearance was not a single cataclysm, but a relentless, creeping force. The land here is crisscrossed with active fault lines, and over centuries the ground slowly subsided. This sinking, combined with the steady, global rise in sea levels that followed the last ice age, meant the Mediterranean gradually reclaimed the city. Its streets did not plunge into the abyss, they were slowly, patiently flooded, inch by inch over generations. Modern archaeologists have used advanced digital surveying to map every stone and foundation, creating a three-dimensional model of the entire settlement. This technology reveals a surprisingly sophisticated hub, a place that traded with other cultures across the eastern Mediterranean. Pavlopetri offers a humbling perspective, showing that the forces we see reshaping our own coasts today have been silently at work for thousands of years. This theme of a long, slow surrender to the sea finds a powerful echo on the other side of the world, where an entire civilization chose to abandon its home to the waves. Across the Indian Ocean, the line between sacred story and sunken stone becomes beautifully blurred. On the western coast of India, the modern town of Dwarka sits beside waters that hide a profound mystery. For thousands of years, Hindu scriptures have spoken of a magnificent golden city, the celestial kingdom of the god Krishna, a place of immense power and wealth that was eventually reclaimed by the sea upon his departure from the world. For generations, this was considered a powerful myth, a spiritual allegory. Then, marine archaeologists began to explore the seabed. What they found was not a city of gold, but something perhaps more valuable, a city of stone. Lying just offshore are the remains of massive stone walls, foundations of large structures, and a scattered collection of ancient stone anchors. These anchors, in particular, are a silent testament to a bustling, ancient port, a place where countless ships once moored, trading goods and ideas. The discovery suggests a major urban center thrived here, a hub of maritime activity that perfectly matches the legendary descriptions of a great capital. But what could have caused its downfall? Geological cores drilled from the region tell a story of dramatic environmental change. The evidence points to a period of rapid sea level rise around 1500 BCE, a time when coastlines around the world were transforming. This was not a slow, creeping flood, but a relatively swift inundation that would have overwhelmed coastal settlements, swallowing them within a few generations. The submerged structures of Dwarka, therefore, stand as a powerful bridge. They force us to ask a compelling question. Did the legend of Krishna's divine city originate from a real, historical event? Did the memory of a great port, tragically lost to the rising ocean, become woven over centuries into the fabric of faith and mythology? Dwarka suggests that our oldest stories are often anchored in truth, a cultural memory of a cataclysm so significant it was preserved for millennia in song and scripture. This idea of a city lost to the encroaching sea is not unique to the Old World. A similar tale of watery demise unfolded on the other side of the globe, where a sophisticated civilization made a fateful decision to surrender its home to the waves. The story of a city surrendering to the sea finds a powerful echo in the jungles of Mexico. Mael, a vital port for the ancient Maya, did not vanish in a single dramatic event. Instead, it was slowly, silently choked by the land itself. Perched on the edge of the Sunken Biosphere Reserve, parts of Mael's stone pyramids still rise proudly from the forest, but its true heart, its bustling waterfront, has been swallowed by the encroaching wetlands. This was not a random outpost, it was a critical hub in an extensive maritime trade network, a place where precious goods like jade, obsidian, and cocoa moved along the coast. The city's lifeblood was its connection to the water, a network of canals that linked it to a series of lagoons and, ultimately, the open sea. But that same water became its undoing. Over centuries, the slow and relentless rise of sea levels, combined with natural sedimentation from the nearby lagoons, began to reshape the entire coastline. The very waterways that brought merchants and wealth slowly filled with silt, transforming solid ground into impassable marsh. The harbor grew shallow, the canals clogged, and the economic engine of the city simply stalled and then fell silent. How do you find a city that has been reclaimed by both jungle and water? The answer came from the sky. Archaeologists employed LIDAR technology, a method that uses laser pulses to digitally strip away the dense forest canopy and even peer through shallow water. This revealed a hidden world beneath the green, a detailed map of structures, plazas, and an intricate system of canals and reservoirs that were completely invisible from the ground. Mael stands as a profound lesson in slow-motion collapse. Its demise was not marked by war or plague, but by a creeping environmental shift that dismantled its economy grain by grain of sand. The city's fate is a stark reminder that a changing landscape can be just as decisive as any earthquake, a truth that becomes even more dramatic when we travel to a place where the coastline did not just shift, it violently exploded. The relentless sea did not just swallow ancient cities, it consumed a medieval metropolis in full view of its own people. On the coast of Suffolk, England, the waves now hide what was once one of the largest and most important ports in the country, a place known as Dunwich. For centuries, this was a powerhouse of trade, home to thousands of people, with a dozen churches, monasteries, and a bustling network of streets. Its fate was sealed not by a single earthquake, but by a brutal succession of storms in the 1300s and 1400s. These great surges of wind and water battered the soft sandstone cliffs upon which Dunwich was built, carving away huge chunks of the town with each passing year. Imagine watching your neighborhood church, a building that had stood for generations, slowly crack and tumble into the churning sea. The townsfolk fought back, building sea defenses and desperately trying to hold the line, but the ocean was an unstoppable enemy. Over the course of a few hundred years, the entire city was eaten away until the last of its grand structures slipped beneath the waves. Today, the modern village of Dunwich is a quiet, small place, a mere echo of its former self. But just offshore, the ruins of the old town lie scattered on the seabed. Using sophisticated sonar technology, researchers have been able to map this underwater ghost town with stunning clarity. They can identify the crumbled foundations of specific buildings, like the lost St. Peter's Church, and trace the outlines of old streets that now serve as channels for fish. The story of Dunwich is a hauntingly recent lesson in the raw, destructive power of coastal storms and the profound vulnerability of even the most established human settlements. It stands in stark contrast to the slow, silent fate of Mile, showing that sometimes the ocean does not ask for surrender, it simply takes. This dramatic, violent loss prepares us for a different kind of discovery, one where the city did not vanish into the sea, but was instead pulled from the embrace of the earth itself. 9,000 years ago, a community gathered around a circle of massive stones near the shore. The village of Atlit, nestled off the coast of what is now Israel, was a stunningly sophisticated settlement for its time, a place where humanity was just beginning to master the arts of farming and fishing. Today, it lies submerged under the Mediterranean, a perfectly preserved time capsule from the Neolithic era. This is not a city of kings or merchants, but a village of some of the world's earliest farmers, and its silent stones tell a story of quiet domestic life abruptly halted by a global climate shift. Archaeologists have mapped out stone houses, hearths, and even storage facilities that held the remains of domesticated animals and crops. The most haunting discovery, however, was not a structure, but evidence within the bones of the villagers themselves. Skeletons found at the site show the earliest known cases of tuberculosis in human history, a silent witness to the diseases that lived alongside these pioneering communities. This intimate glimpse into their suffering makes their ultimate fate all the more poignant. The end for Atlit did not come from war or epidemic, but from the steady, unstoppable creep of the ocean. As the vast glaciers of the last ice age continued to melt, global sea levels rose inch by inch, generation after generation. The village's freshwater wells, a lifeline for the community, eventually became contaminated with salt water. The rising sea would have made farming increasingly difficult and flooded their homes, forcing a slow, deliberate retreat inland. The people of Atlit did not vanish in a cataclysm. They simply packed up their lives and moved, leaving their village to the patient embrace of the sea. This site stands as a profound and deeply ancient precedent, a reminder that the challenge of a changing coastline is not a modern dilemma, but a thread that connects us directly to our most distant ancestors. Their story of adaptation and loss was a prelude to the far grander dramas of civilization that would follow, where the stakes were not just a single village, but entire empires built upon the shore. The sea does not always ask for permission. On the morning of June 7, 1692, the pirate capital of the Caribbean was alive with the sounds of commerce and vice. By 1143, the city of Port Royal was being swallowed whole. A massive earthquake, estimated at a magnitude 7.5, shook the sandy foundation of the city until it simply liquefied. Brick buildings slid into the harbor as the ground turned to slurry beneath them. Then, a series of tsunami waves finished the job, scouring the streets and pulling 2/3 of the so-called wickedest city on Earth into the depths of Kingston Harbor. In a matter of minutes, a bustling hub for pirates, privateers, and merchants was erased from the map, taking thousands of lives with it. This was not a slow surrender, but a violent, divine retribution in the eyes of many. The same event that destroyed Port Royal, however, also created one of the most perfectly preserved archaeological sites in the world. The thick layer of waterlogged silt that settled over the sunken city created an oxygen-poor environment, a natural seal that halted decay. Underwater excavations have revealed a city frozen in the moment of its demise. Archaeologists have found wooden structures still standing, their timbers intact after more than 3 centuries. They have recovered pewter plates set for a meal that was never eaten, wine bottles still sealed, and the personal belongings of citizens who fled in terror. One building, identified as a tavern, was found with its brick floor and a collection of pipes and utensils still in place, a silent testament to the city's raucous daily life. Port Royal stands as the most dramatic example of a city lost to tectonic violence, a stark contrast to the patient, creeping fate of places like Mile or Pavlopetri. Its rediscovery offers a uniquely vivid snapshot of 17th-century colonial life in the Americas, a story not of gradual environmental change, but of the Earth's sudden, brutal power to reshape human geography in an instant. This catastrophic mechanism of loss sets the stage for another legendary city whose fate was also sealed by the shuddering of the planet. Centuries before Port Royal shuddered into the sea, the ancient Greek world was shaken by a different, equally devastating disappearance. The prosperous city of Helike, a key member of the powerful Achaean League, simply vanished one winter night in the year 373 BCE. According to the historical accounts that survived, a massive earthquake struck the region and the ground beneath the city gave way. The soil, saturated by heavy rains, turned into a liquid slurry, and the entire metropolis sank into a newly formed coastal lagoon, dragged down so completely that even the rescue boats sent the next morning could find no trace of it. For the ancient Greeks, this was not a random natural disaster. They believed Helike had been punished by Poseidon, the god of the sea and earthquakes, for its impiety. The city was so thoroughly erased that its exact location became one of antiquity's great mysteries, a ghost story whispered for over 2,000 years. How do you find a city that was swallowed by a lagoon that itself has long since vanished? The answer lay not in dramatic underwater discoveries, but in patient, muddy work on dry land. Modern geologists and archaeologists, using core samples and ground-penetrating radar, finally located Helike's remains not under the open sea, but buried beneath many meters of silt and gravel in a coastal plain. They found the evidence that had eluded searchers for centuries: fragments of pottery, ancient coins, and the stone foundations of buildings, all crushed and jumbled together in a layer that spoke of a single, violent event. This scientific confirmation transformed Helike from a legend of divine wrath into a textbook case of seismic soil liquefaction. The rediscovery of Helike provides a profound and ancient echo to the fate of Port Royal, demonstrating that the same terrifying geological phenomenon can erase cities across millennia and continents. It forces us to see these stories not as isolated acts of gods, but as recurring chapters in the ongoing battle between human civilization and the unstable earth we build upon. This theme of a coastline rewritten by tectonic force sets the stage for a discovery far to the north, where the sea did not swallow a city, but instead gave one back. The opulent playground of ancient Rome's most powerful citizens now lies silent beneath the waves. Baia was not a city of merchants or soldiers, but a sprawling resort dedicated to pleasure and healing, a place where emperors and senators built magnificent villas to escape the pressures of imperial life. It was the Las Vegas of its era, famous for its natural thermal springs, whose warm, mineral-rich waters were believed to cure any ailment. The wealthy and powerful flocked here to indulge in its baths, its theaters, and its legendary decadence. Yet the very geological forces that created its famous hot springs were also its undoing. The entire region sits atop the Phlegrean Fields, a vast and restless volcanic caldera. This unstable ground has been slowly sinking for centuries, a process called bradysism, where the Earth's crust gradually rises and falls due to volcanic activity underground. For Baia, this meant a long, slow descent. Over generations, the land subsided, and the waters of the Bay of Naples crept inexorably inland. The city did not collapse in a single dramatic event, but but was incrementally flooded, its opulent marble floors, grand statues, and elegant colonnades surrendering to the sea meter by patient meter. Today, the sunken city is an underwater archaeological park, a ghostly gallery where divers can float through the ruins of imperial palaces and nymphea, the ornate shrines dedicated to water nymphs. Swimming through these structures, you see marble columns standing upright on the seafloor, their capitals now home to corals and schools of fish. Mosaic pavements, once trod by Roman elites, are visible beneath a thin layer of sand. Baya's fate is a masterclass in geological patience, a stark contrast to the violent ends of Port Royal or Helike. It demonstrates that a coastline can vanish not through a sudden cataclysm, but through a ceaseless, almost imperceptible sinking, a reminder that the ground we build upon is never truly solid. This ancient example of slow subsidence finds a startling and urgent parallel in our modern world, a connection we will soon explore as our journey continues. Sometimes the ocean itself decides to pull back the curtain. The devastating tsunami that struck the coast of India in 2004 brought unimaginable tragedy, but in its powerful retreat, it offered a fleeting, miraculous glimpse into a forgotten world. For a few brief hours, the water receded hundreds of meters from the shore at Mahabalipuram, a place famous for its spectacular shore temple. As the seabed lay exposed, locals and officials witnessed an incredible sight: the outlines of ancient man-made structures, scattered stone blocks, and the remnants of walls. This was not a random collection of rocks, it was the physical proof of a legend known as the Seven Pagodas. For centuries, fishermen had spoken of a grand city with 7 magnificent temples, so beautiful that the gods grew envious and sent a great flood to swallow 6 of them, leaving only the single shore temple as a monument to what was lost. The tsunami's violent action had for a moment confirmed the old stories. Following this dramatic reveal, marine archaeologists began systematic underwater surveys of the area. Their sonar scans and dives confirmed the presence of a large complex submerged in the shallow waters. They documented fallen walls, intricately carved stone blocks, and a variety of artifacts that clearly pointed to a significant settlement extending far beyond the current shoreline. The evidence suggests that the shore temple we see today was never alone. It was merely the landward survivor of a much larger religious and urban center. This event powerfully demonstrates how a modern natural disaster can inadvertently act as an agent of discovery, pulling back the sea to expose a lost chapter of history. The story of Mahabalipuram is a profound lesson in listening to our oldest tales. It proves that folklore and myth are often not pure invention, but a cultural memory of real cataclysmic events, a kernel of geological truth passed down through generations in the form of a story. This compelling connection between legend and reality forces us to wonder what other coastal myths, whispered in ports and fishing villages around the world, are patiently waiting for their own moment of revelation. The slow, patient hunger of the sea is written in the ruins of Aulis. On the northern coast of Crete, the clear, shallow waters of the Bay of Elaunda now cover the streets of a once powerful Dorian city. Aulis was strategically built on a narrow spit of land, a natural isthmus that connected it to the mainland and controlled access to 2 sheltered harbors. This geography was the source of its wealth and influence, a place that brokered treaties with other major powers on the island. But that same slender land bridge became its greatest vulnerability. Over centuries, the relentless Mediterranean waves chewed away at the sandy neck of the isthmus. There was no single dramatic storm that severed it, just the endless, gentle lapping of water against stone, grain by grain, until the connection was finally broken. The city, now stranded on a newly formed peninsula, found itself directly in the path of the encroaching sea. Today, you can wade through the warm, shallow bay and see the evidence of this slow-motion dissolution. The stone foundations of houses and public buildings lie just beneath the surface, their outlines clearly visible from above. In some places, the very tops of ancient walls still break the water's surface like the bones of a forgotten giant. Further out, a sunken cemetery rests on the seabed, a silent, solemn reminder of the community that once thrived here. The loss of Aulis stands in stark contrast to the violent, instantaneous fates of Port Royal or Helike. This was not a punishment from the gods or a sudden collapse, but a gradual, inexorable process of coastal erosion. The sea did not conquer the city, it simply outlasted it, patiently reclaiming the land until the bustling port was reduced to a collection of ghostly foundations for snorkelers to explore. This relentless, grinding force of erosion is a constant sculptor of our coastlines, a truth that becomes even more immediate when we consider the fate of a city that was not merely submerged, but actively torn apart by the very river that gave it life. The relentless Atlantic has a long memory for the villages it has claimed. Along the dramatic, wind-swept coast of Cornwall, the stories are not of single, cataclysmic events, but of a slow, persistent nibbling away at the edge of the world. Here, the lost settlements are not grand metropolises like Heracleion or Dunwich, but humble communities of fishermen and tin miners, places where life was hardscrabble and intimately tied to the very sea that would eventually consume them. For generations, villages like Portreath and Godrevy clung to the cliffs, their economies built on the rich mineral veins deep within the rock and the abundant fish in the churning waters below. But the cliffs of Cornwall are not made of solid stone. They are often composed of softer shale and slate, vulnerable to the constant assault of storm waves and winter gales. Over centuries, the ocean has patiently undercut these cliffs, causing great sections to calve away in thunderous collapses, taking cottages, farmsteads, and even entire mine workings with them. You can stand on the coastal path today and look down at the waves crashing where a blacksmith's forge or a miner's cottage once stood, the foundations now just rubble on the seabed. Their stories are meticulously preserved in local church records and the stubborn oral histories of Cornish families, tales of a church bell that is said to still toll from beneath the waves on stormy nights, a ghostly echo of a community lost. These were not cities of legend, but places of ordinary life, and their gradual disappearance speaks to a different kind of loss, one that is cumulative and deeply personal. The pattern here is not of a divine punishment or a sudden tectonic shift, but of a long-standing, intimate battle between a people and their environment, a battle where the high ground is constantly, inexorably being surrendered. This erosion of humble communities by a hungry sea is a universal story, one that finds a powerful and tragic parallel in a land far from the Atlantic's reach, where an entire culture was severed from its past by the rising waters. The vibrant color of royalty once flowed through the veins of a small sea snail, and a city was built upon this precious liquid. On the remote Mediterranean coast of ancient Lycia, the city of Apelli thrived not on gold or silver, but on the production of Tyrian purple dye, a substance so valuable it was worth its weight in precious metal. Harvesting the murex snails was a gruesome and foul-smelling process, but the deep, rich crimson it produced became the ultimate status symbol for Roman emperors and senators. Apelli's entire existence was tied to the sea, its wealth literally scraped from the coastal rocks where the snails thrived. Yet that same intimate relationship with the water sealed the city's slow fate. The land here was gradually sinking, a victim of the same tectonic pressures that shaped the Turkish coastline. This gradual subsidence, paired with the relentless global rise in sea levels following the last ice age, meant the Mediterranean began a patient invasion. It was not a rapid conquest. Over several centuries, the sea crept into the city's fortified harbors, then its waterfront streets, and finally into the foundations of its homes and public buildings. The very element that gave Apolli its purpose became the agent of its dissolution. Today, the ruins offer a hauntingly beautiful tableau. In the clear, shallow water, you can swim over the crumbled lines of walls that once defined rooms and courtyards. Most striking are the ancient sarcophagi, their stone lids now resting on the seabed, standing as silent, submerged sentinels over a city that traded in imperial purple. Apolli's story is a powerful paradox, a lesson in how a community's greatest economic strength can, over time, transform into its most profound vulnerability. This theme of environmental dependency echoes far from the Turkish coast, leading us to a city where the relationship with water was not one of industry, but of sheer, life-giving necessity. The ocean is not the only force that can command a city to vanish. Deep within the man-made expanse of Qingdao Lake in China, an ancient metropolis sleeps in silent, deliberate darkness. This is the Lion City, or Xicheng, and its story is a profound departure from the tales of earthquakes and rising seas. In 1959, the Chinese government made a monumental decision. They would flood an entire valley to create a new hydroelectric power station and reservoir. The people of the surrounding area were relocated, and the waters began to rise slowly and methodically, submerging a city with a history stretching back to the Han and Tang dynasties. This was not an act of nature, but an act of human progress, a calculated sacrifice for modern energy. Yet the result was strangely similar, the creation of a perfect underwater time capsule. The cold, deep freshwater of the lake, which is startlingly clear, has acted as an extraordinary preservative. Unlike the corrosive salt of the ocean, this environment has protected the city's stonework from decay for decades. Today, advanced divers can descend into this silent world and glide past exquisitely carved arches, intricate stone lions, and the towering walls that once defined the city's grandeur. They float over ornate ceremonial gates and 5-story pagodas, all standing perfectly intact, a ghostly, frozen moment from centuries past. Xicheng forces us to reconsider our very definition of a vanished city. Its shores did not shift by the slow hand of geology, but by the swift decision of an engineer. It demonstrates that human ambition can replicate in a single generation the same process of preservation that nature accomplishes over millennia. This idea of deliberate submersion, of trading a past for a future, presents a complex moral and historical dilemma, a theme that echoes in a very different part of the world where an entire community was sacrificed not for power but for water itself. The legend of Sybaris was a cautionary tale whispered for centuries. This ancient Greek colony in southern Italy became so synonymous with wealth and decadence that its very name gave us the word Sybarite, a person devoted to luxury and pleasure. The historical accounts were vivid, describing a city where inhabitants slept on rose petals and dined on gourmet delicacies, a place of such opulence it invited the envy of its neighbors. That envy turned to violence when the rival city of Croton attacked and utterly destroyed Sybaris around 510 BCE. The city was reportedly so thoroughly razed that its exact location was lost, becoming a ghost on the map, a mythical place of lost luxury. For generations, historians and treasure hunters searched for it in vain. They were looking in the wrong place, not because their maps were faulty, but because the landscape itself had been completely rewritten. The key was not the sea, but the river. Sybaris was originally built on a coastal plain, a strategic location near the mouth of the Crati River. After its destruction, the river itself began to act as a slow geological shroud. Year after year, century after century, the Cratty flooded its banks, depositing layer upon layer of rich silt and mud over the ruins of the vanquished city. This process, known as progradation, is a different kind of shoreline shift. Instead of the sea advancing or the land sinking, the river was actively building new land, pushing the coastline steadily forward into the sea. The very ruins that searchers sought were not out at sea, but buried deep beneath what had become miles of fertile agricultural plain, hidden under meters of compacted earth. How do you find a city that is not submerged, but simply paved over by nature? The answer required not diving gear, but the patient science of archaeology. Teams began a massive campaign of core drilling, sinking long, narrow tubes deep into the plain to extract cylinders of earth. They were reading the soil like a history book, and deep within those cores, they found their prize: fragments of pottery, ancient building materials, and evidence of human habitation lying far beneath the modern surface. This guided large-scale excavations that finally uncovered the ghost of Submerged. They found not gleaming gold, but something more historically valuable: the foundational outlines of the city's streets, its harbor works, and its homes, all perfectly preserved in their muddy tomb. The mud that had hidden Submerged for over 2 millennia had also protected it from looters and the elements, creating a time capsule as effective as any sunken city. Submerged forces us to expand our idea of a vanished city. It was not claimed by the ocean's hunger or the earth's fury, but gently, patiently, and completely buried by the river that once gave it life. A profound reminder that the forces that hide our past are as creative as they are destructive. Off the coast of Japan's westernmost island, the sea guards a mystery carved in stone. The Yonaguni Monument lies in clear, deep water, a sprawling complex of massive rock formations that look unnaturally geometric. You see what appear to be vast, flat terraces connected by sharp, 90-degree steps. There are twin monoliths that stand like pillars, and wide, open plazas that seem deliberately leveled. The entire structure is a collection of right angles and flat surfaces, a stark contrast to the typically rounded, chaotic forms of natural bedrock. This is the frontier where archaeology and geology collide in a fierce, ongoing debate. On one side, some scientists and researchers point to the sheer precision of the shapes. They argue that the sandstone could have been quarried and shaped by human hands thousands of years ago, creating a city or a ceremonial center for a culture now lost to history. This theory suggests a connection to the legendary continent of Mu, a Pacific equivalent of Atlantis, said to have vanished beneath the waves. If true, it would rewrite our understanding of ancient seafaring civilizations in this part of the world. The opposing view, held by many geologists, is that these are spectacularly beautiful natural formations. They explain that the sandstone in this region is crisscrossed with natural vertical fractures. Over thousands of years, powerful tidal currents have relentlessly eroded along these lines, scouring out blocks and creating the appearance of carved steps and platforms. The process, known as sheet jointing, can produce remarkably straight edges and flat surfaces without any human intervention. So, who is right? The truth may be more complex than a simple choice. It is possible that the formations are primarily natural, but that an ancient people saw their sacred qualities and modified them, enhancing the steps or carving symbols that have since been worn away by the same relentless sea. The mystery of Yonaguni does not offer easy answers. Instead, it presents a profound challenge, forcing us to look at a familiar world with new eyes and question the very line between a natural wonder and a human masterpiece. It stands as a powerful reminder that some of the greatest discoveries are not just about finding answers, but about learning to ask better questions. a skill that becomes essential as we turn our attention from the deep Pacific to the shallow, sun-drenched waters of the Caribbean. The seabed of the Gulf of Cambay holds a secret that challenges everything we think we know about ancient history. During a routine marine survey in the early 2000s, sonar equipment began painting a startling picture of the seafloor. Instead of the expected natural contours, the readings showed massive geometric structures, the clear outlines of what appeared to be foundations and walls sprawling across a vast area. Along with these sunken ruins, dredging brought up artifacts that made the discovery even more compelling: weathered pottery, stone tools, and even fragments of human bone. The initial dating of these materials was nothing short of revolutionary, pointing to an age of up to 9,500 years. If accurate, this would mean a sophisticated urban center existed here millennia before the great civilizations of the Indus Valley arose, completely rewriting the timeline of human settlement in South Asia. Such a city would have thrived on a coastal plain at the end of the last ice age, a time when sea levels were far lower. Its eventual disappearance would not have been sudden, but the result of the same patient, global flooding that consumed Atlit Yam, a slow drowning over centuries as the glaciers melted and the oceans claimed the land. Yet this breathtaking claim is mired in intense debate. Many leading archaeologists have raised serious questions about the methods used to date the site, pointing to the potential for natural geological processes to mimic man-made structures and the possibility that ancient artifacts could have been shifted by powerful currents, misleadingly settling on top of much older seabed formations. The controversy itself is a crucial part of the scientific process, a necessary skepticism that separates legend from fact. This unresolved mystery in the Gulf of Cambay serves as a powerful reminder that for every sunken city we can confidently point to on a map, there may be another, even older one waiting just beyond the edge of our understanding, a ghost on the sonar screen that dares us to look deeper. The wealth of a city can be found far from its central streets. In the rocky highlands of Greece, archaeologists made a stunning discovery: the lost city of Cantre'r. It was a place long thought to be mythical, founded by Trojan prisoners of war after the fall of Troy. Excavations on land revealed a prosperous community with fine houses and a sprawling cemetery, confirming its existence and its famed wealth. But a crucial piece of the puzzle is still missing: its harbor. Ancient texts speak of Cantre'r's port, a vital gateway that connected this inland power to the trade routes of the Mediterranean. Its ships carried goods that built the city's fortune, yet the port itself has vanished from the map. The culprit here was not a sudden cataclysm, but a slow and steady transformation of the coastline. The rivers feeding into the Corinthian Gulf carried immense amounts of silt, depositing it year after year at the mouth of the harbor. This relentless process of sedimentation would have gradually filled the port basin, turning deep water into shallow marshland and then into solid earth. Compounding this, the entire region is a seismic hotspot, where earthquakes frequently lift or lower sections of the shore. A single tremor could have raised the seafloor, stranding the harbor far inland, while another might have sunk it completely beneath the waves. The search for Cantre'r's port is a race against time and shifting geography, a reminder that a city's economic heart often beat in a separate location, a place highly vulnerable to change. When that connection to the sea is severed, the memory of how the city truly thrived is often the first part of its story to be erased. This idea that a city's history extends to the water's edge becomes even more critical as we move from a lost port to an entire civilization that deliberately turned its back on the sea. The scale of loss can be almost too vast to comprehend. We have traced the outlines of sunken cities, but what about an entire sunken continent of human history? Between Britain and mainland Europe, beneath the turbulent grey waves of the North Sea, lies a lost world known as Doggerland. This was not a city, but a vast, fertile plain, a land bridge the size of a modern country, teeming with life and home to Mesolithic hunter-gatherers for thousands of years. These people were not building stone temples or ports, but they were part of a complex nomadic society that followed the herds of reindeer and wild horses across a landscape of rolling hills, dense forests, and meandering rivers. Their world was rich and stable, a continental crossroads. Then the world warmed. As the colossal ice sheets of the last glacial period melted, the sea levels began their inexorable global rise. This was not a flood in the biblical sense, but a creeping, relentless invasion. The water advanced meter by meter, generation by generation, turning freshwater lakes into brackish estuaries and then into open sea. The hunter-gatherers would have watched their familiar hunting grounds shrink, their sacred forests drown, and the rivers they used for navigation swell and merge with the ocean. They were forced into a constant, desperate retreat, their entire world shrinking until the highest hills became isolated islands, and then, finally, those too vanished beneath the waves. The evidence for this lost continent is pulled from the deep by an unlikely group of archaeologists, North Sea fishermen. For centuries, their trawler nets have dragged up more than just fish. They have hauled in the bones of mammoths, lions, and reindeer, along with perfectly crafted flint tools and spear points, all dredged from the seabed. These are not the ruins of buildings, but the scattered debris of a drowned ecosystem and the people who lived in it. Modern science has given this anecdotal evidence a breathtaking form. Advanced seismic mapping of the seafloor has revealed the ghost geography of Doggerland with stunning clarity. We can now see the sunken river valleys like the Channel River, which once flowed where the English Channel is today. We can trace the outlines of ancient coastlines, hills, and lakes, creating a detailed topographic map of a world that has been absent for over 8,000 years. Doggerland forces us to expand our definition of a vanished civilization. The shifting shores did not just claim a port or a metropolis, they erased an entire continent of human experience, a place where countless generations lived, loved, and struggled. This is a loss on a scale that dwarfs the fall of any single city, a sobering reminder that the map of our world is only temporary, and that the greatest chapters of our shared human story may still be lying at the bottom of the sea. King Herod the Great demanded a harbor that would proclaim his power to the world, and at Caesarea Maritima he got it. This was not a natural bay improved by human hands, but a colossal artificial harbor built from scratch on an open, sandy coast. Its breakwaters, stretching far out into the Mediterranean, were a breathtaking feat of Roman engineering, creating a safe anchorage for an entire fleet and establishing a bustling gateway to the Eastern Empire. The secret to its construction was a revolutionary type of hydraulic concrete that could set and harden underwater. Workers poured this mixture into enormous wooden frames right on the seabed, creating massive blocks that formed the skeleton of the piers and protective walls. For a few decades, it must have seemed like a perfect, permanent victory over the sea, but the victory was an illusion. The engineers of the ancient world had made a fatal miscalculation. They had built their magnificent harbor directly atop a layer of unstable sand and sediment. The immense weight of all that stone and concrete began to press down, compacting the soft seabed beneath it. Almost as soon as it was finished, the harbor began a slow, inexorable sink. Then the earthquakes came. The region is crisscrossed with fault lines, and a series of powerful tremors shattered the already settling breakwaters. Tsunamis followed, scouring the damaged structures and scattering the heavy concrete blocks. Within a few centuries, the grand harbor was rendered useless, its protective arms broken and submerged. Today, those ruins form an accidental gift to the modern world. The sunken blocks have become a thriving artificial reef, a submerged metropolis for marine life. Underwater archaeologists have mapped this drowned landscape, revealing the staggering scale of Herod's ambition and the precise point of its failure. They swim through a ghostly infrastructure of toppled columns and scattered building materials, all lying in the clear, shallow water just offshore. Caesarea Maritima stands as a timeless lesson in the dangers of imposing our will upon a landscape we do not fully understand. It is a stark reminder that the most brilliant human designs can be undone by the silent, shifting reality of the ground below. The deliberate flooding of a landscape is one of the most complex forms of vanishing. Far from the ancient world of Xicheng, a similar story of sacrifice unfolded in the American South during the 1930s. To power the burgeoning industries of South Carolina, a decision was made to dam the Saluda River, creating the massive Lake Murray. The project promised economic progress and modern electricity, but it came at a profound human cost. The river valley was home to vibrant communities, towns with names like Derrick, Pine Ridge, and Wessinger. Families who had lived there for generations were given a difficult choice: sell their land to the power company and leave, or watch the waters rise around them. Churches, schools, and farms, all the anchors of a rural life, were condemned to become a new lakebed. When the floodgates closed, the waters slowly and methodically filled the valley, submerging these towns completely. They did not crumble or collapse, they were simply drowned, their memories sealed beneath the surface of a brand new lake. This was not an act of geological fate, but a deliberate trade, a 20th century calculation where the future's need for power outweighed the present's connection to home. The result, however, is another eerily preserved time capsule. Unlike the stone ruins of ancient China, the sunken villages of Lake Murray are a snapshot of early 20th century rural America. When severe droughts caused the water levels to drop, the ghostly outlines of this lost world re-emerge. The foundations of old homes become visible again. The gravestones of family cemeteries, carefully relocated to higher ground before the flood, sometimes reveal the original plots they were moved from. The cracked asphalt of long-forgotten roads suddenly appears, tracing routes that now lead only into the deep. These fleeting glimpses are haunting, a direct line to a world that was sacrificed for progress. They force us to ask a difficult question: what do we gain and what do we lose when we reshape the earth to suit our needs? The submerged towns of Lake Murray represent a modern, intentional chapter in the long story of coastal disappearance, proving that the shores can shift not just from natural forces, but from the unwavering hand of human ambition. The waves of Cardigan Bay hide more than just sand. They guard the memory of a lost Welsh kingdom. According to an ancient legend, a land of 16 fertile villages known as Cantre'r flourished here, protected from the sea by a great dike and a system of sluice gates. The story says that one night, a negligent gatekeeper named Seithanin, lost to drink during a grand feast, failed to close the gates against a rising storm. The sea rushed in, drowning the lowlands and forcing the people to flee to the hills, leaving their homes to the mercy of the waves. For centuries, this was a powerful folktale, a moral lesson about responsibility and the peril of the coast. Then the shifting shores offered their evidence. During exceptionally low tides, the stumps of an ancient, submerged forest became visible on the beach. Even more compelling, geological surveys of the seabed uncovered a vast landscape of preserved peat, and within that peat, the unmistakable imprint of human footprints, frozen in time. These are not the ruins of palaces, but the intimate traces of a people who walked on dry ground where fish now swim. the legend of Cantre'r transforms when viewed through this lens. It ceases to be pure fantasy and becomes a powerful example of how a real catastrophic event, the rapid inundation of a coastal plain, can be woven into the fabric of a culture's identity. The story preserved the trauma of that loss for generations, long after the precise historical details were forgotten. This pattern of a cautionary tale encoding a geological truth is a universal human response to disaster, a way of making sense of a changing world by giving it a name, a face, and a lesson. The seabed near Taranto holds another sunken secret. Recent marine surveys off the coast of southern Italy have mapped a network of stone walls and the distinct foundations of buildings lying on the ocean floor, a ghostly grid that suggests an organized settlement. The arrangement points toward an ancient Greek colony, one of the many that once dotted this coastline, yet its specific name remains a tantalizing mystery, lost to the very waves that now conceal it. The mechanism of its disappearance, however, is written clearly in the geology of the region. This part of Italy is a seismic hotspot, where the Earth's plates constantly grind against one another. It is highly probable that a powerful earthquake struck here centuries ago, its tremors causing a phenomenon known as soil liquefaction. In this terrifying process, the solid ground, saturated with water, instantly turns into a liquid slurry, losing all its strength. An entire section of the coastline, along with the city built upon it, would have simply sunk, plunging into the Mediterranean in a matter of minutes. This discovery is a powerful declaration that our map of the classical world is far from complete. The Mediterranean floor is a vast underwater museum, its halls still largely unexplored. Every one of these submerged sites is a frozen moment, a story of human ambition cut short by the land giving way. Each promises a future revelation, a new piece of the puzzle that will help us understand the true scale and interconnectedness of our ancient past. How many more of these sunken centers are waiting for their story to be told? The stones of Aegina tell a story of trade and power, but you have to look beneath the waves to find its most important chapter. While the grand Acropolis of Colonna still stands watch on the shore, its mighty Bronze Age harbor has slipped silently into the shallow waters of the Saronic Gulf. This was not the work of a single storm, but the patient, relentless result of two powerful forces working in concert over centuries. Tectonic pressure caused the land itself to ever so slowly subside, while the global rise in sea levels following the last ice age, a process known as eustatic change, provided a constant rising tide. The very water that brought Aegina its wealth became the blanket that eventually covered its gateway to the world. What remains on the seabed is a testament to Mycenaean ambition. You can see the long, straight lines of submerged moles and breakwaters, colossal structures of fitted stone that once created a safe haven for ships loaded with pottery, olive oil, and metals. This was not a simple, natural cove, but a deliberately engineered fortress for commerce, designed to withstand the worst of Mediterranean storms. Its construction reveals a deep understanding of maritime engineering, a mastery over the sea that must have felt absolute to the people who built it. Yet its silent fate demonstrates a humbling truth that no human structure, no matter how robust, is a permanent match for the slow, grinding power of geological time. The harbor did not shatter, it simply sank, its formidable walls outlasted by the very element they were meant to control. By mapping these sunken facilities, archaeologists gain a critical window into the intricate web of Bronze Age trade. The scale of the harbor at Aegina confirms its role as a major hub, a place where goods and ideas were exchanged across the Aegean, linking powerful kingdoms and fueling the growth of early Greek civilization. Its submerged stones are a direct physical link to a network of commerce that stretched from Crete to the mainland. This discovery forces a sobering realization: the infrastructure of commerce, the very engine of a city's economy, is often the most vulnerable part of a coastal settlement. When the shoreline shifts, the ports and docks that connect a community to the world are almost always the first to be lost, severing its lifeline and beginning its slow fade from memory. The voices of ancient poets can be a map to a sunken world. For 2,000 years, Tamil literature has sung of Poompuhar, a glorious port city adorned with palaces and a bustling marketplace where merchants traded precious gems and fine silks. These epic poems described its vibrant life in exquisite detail, but they also recorded its tragic end, a day when the sea rose in a great fury and swallowed the city whole. For centuries, these verses were treated as beautiful mythology, the imaginative work of storytellers. Then, marine archaeologists began to listen. In the Bay of Bengal, several kilometers from the modern shoreline, their sonar scans and underwater surveys revealed a stunning reality. Lying on the seabed were the distinct outlines of man-made structures, the remnants of walls, and the scattered artifacts of a sophisticated society. This was not a random collection of ruins, it was a city, and its location and description matched the ancient poems with breathtaking accuracy. The literary accounts were not fiction, they were historical eyewitness reports, passed down through generations in the form of song and verse. The evidence on the seafloor points to a cataclysmic cause. Geological surveys of the region show clear signs of a massive tsunami event, likely triggered by a powerful undersea earthquake. The force of such a wave would have been unimaginable, capable of scouring the coastline and dragging entire districts out to sea in a single, violent surge. The ongoing exploration of Poompuhar is a remarkable conversation across time, where the words of a poet guide the hand of an archaeologist. A line from an epic can suggest where to dive, a description of a temple can help identify a crumbled foundation. This partnership between text and trench demonstrates that our oldest stories are often our most valuable historical tools, preserving the memory of a catastrophe so profound that it demanded to be remembered in art. It proves that a lost city can live on long after its stones have settled on the seabed, kept alive in the rhythm of a poem and the collective memory of a culture. A pungent aroma of fermented fish once defined a Roman city. Neapolis, on the coast of modern Tunisia, was not just another provincial town. It was an industrial powerhouse, the empire's primary factory for a condiment known as garum. This prized, salty fish sauce was the ketchup of the ancient world, a staple on every Roman table from the humblest tavern to the emperor's palace. The city's wealth and identity were built on this unique and somewhat smelly industry. For centuries, historical records spoke of a great tsunami that struck the Mediterranean in the year 365 AD. A cataclysm so severe it was said to have devastated the port of Alexandria and battered coastlines as far away as Crete. Neapolis was mentioned as one of the cities hit, but the full scale of the disaster remained a historical footnote, a story without physical proof. Then the sea gave up its evidence. Marine archaeologists surveying the shallow waters off Nabule began to notice strange, geometric patterns on the seabed. What they uncovered was not a few scattered ruins, but an entire urban district, a sprawling extension of the city of Neapolis that now lies perfectly preserved beneath the waves. The layout is unmistakable, a grid of Roman streets and the foundations of homes and workshops, all silent under a thin layer of sand. The most telling discoveries, however, were the dozens of large, rectangular vats built from waterproof concrete and arranged in neat industrial rows. These were the garum factories, the very heart of the city's economy. In these sunken tanks, fish would have been layered with salt and herbs and left to ferment in the hot sun for months, producing the valuable liquid that was then shipped across the empire in distinctive clay amphorae. The scene on the seabed is a moment frozen in time. It paints a vivid picture of a bustling workday in the 4th century, abruptly and violently interrupted. The tsunami did not just damage the city, it permanently annexed its industrial quarter, swallowing the source of its wealth and dragging it into the Mediterranean. This underwater city does more than confirm an old story. It provides a direct, tangible link to the daily rhythms of the Roman economy. It reveals how a single environmental event could sever a critical supply line, demonstrating the profound vulnerability of even the most organized and powerful societies to the whims of nature. The ruins of Neapolis stand as a silent, sunken testament to a simple truth, that the fortunes of human civilization are forever tied to the stability of the ground beneath our feet and the sea at our doorstep. The murky green waters of the Java Sea are slowly yielding their own forgotten kingdom. In just the last decade, fishermen navigating these busy straits and recreational divers exploring the depths have begun reporting something extraordinary: the ghostly shapes of ancient temple structures emerging from the seabed. These are not vague outlines, but the distinct forms of carved stone and the geometry of man-made foundations, lying in a place where modern maps show only empty ocean. Preliminary underwater surveys seem to confirm these local accounts, suggesting the ruins could belong to a previously unknown city-state, a contemporary and perhaps a rival of the mighty Srivijaya Empire, which once dominated the maritime trade routes of Southeast Asia. How does an entire city vanish from such a vibrant crossroads of the world? The forces at work here are as powerful as they are varied. This region is a geological battleground, home to some of the world's most active volcanoes. A cataclysmic eruption, similar to the one that buried Pompeii, could have smothered the city in a thick layer of ash and pumice, causing the land to collapse under the weight. Alternatively, the relentless flow of sediment from the island's many rivers could have simply choked its harbors and buried it over centuries, a slow death by silt. And always there is the patient, global rise of the sea, which may have gradually inundated a low-lying coastal plain, turning streets into seabed. The investigation itself is a race against the environment. The Java Sea is notorious for its poor visibility, with currents that stir the sandy bottom into a perpetual, swirling gloom. These conditions make systematic excavation a monumental challenge, requiring technology and patience to see what the human eye cannot. Yet this difficult work hints at a staggering possibility. The vast archipelagos of Southeast Asia, with their thousands of islands and complex coastlines, likely hold countless more sunken secrets. Each of these potential sites represents a lost chapter in the story of human migration and trade, a civilization whose history was submerged by the very dynamism of the earth that gave it life. This single, emerging discovery points toward an entire ocean of history we have only just begun to suspect. These submerged secrets do not reveal themselves easily. Finding a city lost for centuries requires a technological toolkit as sophisticated as the civilizations we seek. The search often begins not with a dive, but with a digital scan from the surface. Vessels tow side-scan sonar devices that emit fan-shaped pulses of sound, painting a detailed acoustic picture of the seafloor. This technology can distinguish between a natural rock outcrop and the straight lines of a crumbled wall with stunning clarity. Complementing this is multi-beam bathymetry, which uses a wide array of sound beams to create ultra-high-resolution, three-dimensional maps of the underwater terrain. These maps can reveal the subtle, human-altered contours of a landscape, like the ghost of a harbor channel or the sunken bed of an ancient river, features completely invisible to the naked eye. For ruins hidden in shallow waters or beneath coastal jungles, LIDAR is the tool of choice. Mounted on aircraft, it fires millions of laser pulses to digitally strip away vegetation and even peer through clear water, revealing the stark geometry of forgotten city plans. From even higher up, satellites use advanced imaging to detect subtle differences in water color and temperature that can hint at large structures resting on the seabed, guiding researchers to promising locations across vast areas of ocean. But a ghost on a sonar screen is not yet a confirmed discovery. This is where science must get its feet wet. Scuba divers become the eyes and hands of the operation, descending to verify the data, brushing away sand to feel the cut of a stone block, or recovering a pottery shard that provides cultural context. For deeper, more dangerous sites, remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, are deployed. These robotic submarines, equipped with high-definition cameras and manipulator arms, can explore depths far beyond human limits, sending back live video from ancient shipwrecks and crumbled temples. This entire process is a symphony of collaboration. An archaeologist interprets the artifacts, a geologist explains why the ground sank, and an oceanographer models the currents that buried the site. It is this fusion of disciplines that transforms a legend into a historical fact. The scientific toolkit for rediscovery is constantly evolving, allowing us to systematically explore the vast, hidden landscapes of our continental shelves, turning the whispered stories of the past into a mapped and catalogued reality. 27 sunken cities stand as silent sentinels along our shores, each one a monument to the enduring dialogue between humanity and the sea. Their stories are not all the same, yet they speak with a single, powerful voice. We have witnessed cities like Pavlopetri and Myal surrender over centuries to the patient creep of rising waters, their economies slowly strangled by the very environment that gave them life. We have seen others like Port Royal and Helike erased in an instant by the Earth's sudden, violent shudders. Whether the end came slowly or all at once, the result is the same: a civilization's footprint pressed into the seabed, a memory preserved in silt and stone. The rediscovery of these places is a breathtaking achievement, a testament to human curiosity and technological ingenuity, but it is also a sobering lesson written in ruins. The forces that shaped their fate, the rising seas and unstable grounds, are not confined to the ancient world. They are the very same challenges our own coastal cities face today. These 27 lost metropolises are more than archaeological wonders. They are a mirror held up to our future. They urge us to look at our own glittering skylines built on vulnerable shores and ask if we are listening to the warnings from the past. Let the quiet streets of Heracleion and the submerged villas of Bayer fill you with awe for what was, but also with a profound responsibility for what will be. May their stories inspire a deeper respect for the power of nature and a wiser, more resilient path forward. Thank you for joining this exploration of history's sunken secrets.